little late, depending on when you're watching this. We are live. Otherwise, we're on replay. You'd be
We
determining
might be
that
a
because if
little
you're not here live,
too.
well, then
No,
you know we're
just
on the
kidding.
replay. Yeah, exactly. We had a bit of technical difficulty today, and I think we're going to have pronunciation difficulties today too. Here we are, the Pyramid of Success, based on the legendary coach John Wooden's teachings. To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly. Good morning, everybody, and again, apologize for the technical difficulty. Wow, that's an interesting word this morning. Technical difficulties. we are live now. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Daman. Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Ryan says I got scared. There was no episode.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Y'all know what time it is. Checking in from Tennessee,
come
James.
on now.
Yes, sir.
We
yes,
can't
sir.
do that, y'all.
Jeff says, Brian, good morning.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be here. You have mouth difficulties. I have technical difficulties, but we're here. We're ready. We're ready to climb that pyramid.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, Brian,
Yes.
when you were on a couple of weeks ago when we were having those difficult reception issues, and when you said you'd come back on so soon, I was so happy because when we first met, the Pyramid of Success and all of your CDs with the Allison story. And I mean, that's another story that I think just everyone in the world needs to hear. And I know I kind of put you on the spot all the time, a 45-minute story. And I say, can you do it in like 7 minutes? So I mean, unless you want to, I won't do that to you today. But your book, The Pyramid of Success, was just instrumental in changing the course of the way I did things, the way I saw things. And I'd love for you to share with the audience just kind of how it came about, and then let's go through the steps of the pyramid, if you would.
You bet. When I was growing up, I grew up in Southern California, and the man that I kind of most of all revered was John Wooden. Now, for those who don't know, John Wooden was the greatest college basketball coach in U.S. college basketball history. He was the coach of UCLA from 1948 to 1975. His teams at UCLA won 10 national championships. Now that is beyond legendary. The second most national championships by any other coach was by Coach K, who retired this year after 42 years of coaching, and he won 5. So Coach Wooden won twice as many as legendary Coach K. But it wasn't really how much he won. It was how he did it. It was who he was. He was a gentleman. He was somebody who really, really looked to develop the person more than he understand that you coach people. You don't coach sports. You don't coach business. You coach human beings. And so in my corporate career, I was a coach in my first career. And without knowing it, I had picked up little things that were similar to Coach Wooden. Number one, that I love to coach people, and that how important the foundations of the pyramid, which are industriousness and enthusiasm, were. When I went into my corporate career after getting my MBA, I was running a company that had personal trainers, life trainers all around North America. And I thought, what would be better than to interview the greatest coach of all time? So I knew where he lived, which was in Encino, California, which was close to where I had been a coach. Somehow, I managed to get his phone number. I dialed him up on the phone. He answered the phone. Now, I was not ready for that. I thought I'd have to talk to 47 people before I'd even get a chance to make an appointment. And, I stuttered and I stumbled, and I, was like that, trying to say that technical difficulties thing that you were doing this morning. Finally, I got myself together enough to ask him what I'd called for, which if I could come and interview him. And this true gentleman said, "Sure, Brian, I'd welcome you. Come on down." So I drove to his home. He lived very modestly in Encino, California, sat down in the living room with this living legend. And for 2 hours, I interviewed him, by the end of which we became friends. And that led to him writing the foreword to my book, to becoming a real mentor, not just one that I read about, but one that I tried to connect with. Whenever I came to Southern California, I called him as I was writing the book often to make sure that what I was writing was accurate. The book isn't about John Wooden, but it's filled with John Wooden's wisdom. It's filled, and it's based upon his pyramid of success. So that was the basis of where this concept came from, and I felt that it had such a beautiful fit to everything that I believed in.
That's awesome. And I love that you coach people, and that was a big eye-opening experience for me when you start going through that book. You see that in every page about changing that mindset, about shifting your perspective, and all the other beautiful things that not very many coaches talk about, right? Like we could teach, I'll use sales for example, because being a sales coach, I can teach anyone how to sell, but I can't teach them passion. I can't teach them that desire to continuously be motivated. Sure, can I motivate them on a call? Yeah, but that fades away pretty quick. As Zig Ziglar said, you shower every day. What makes you think you get motivated on a Monday, and by Friday, if you don't keep getting motivated, you're going to stay motivated, right?
Exactly.
So let's. We got tons of comments here. The legendary coach of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Then Ryan says. Do not let making a living prevent you from making a life. Nice.
Oh, yeah. John Wooden would be proud of you.
Raquel.
So let me start, if I could, let me start at the foundations before we even start to talk about the pyramid, because I think that's really important.
Sorry, Brian. Raquel, we're talking about Brian Biro's book, The Pyramid of Success.
It's actually called Beyond Success.
Beyond Success, sorry. The Pyramid of Success based on John Wooden's coaching, yes.
Right. So it's called Beyond Success, the 15 Secrets to Effective Leadership in Life. And it's based upon John Wooden's Pyramid of Success. And one of the things that really is at the foundation, why I titled the book Beyond Success, was to make the point that one of the real differentiators that made John Wooden so extraordinary, and that I had realized without knowing it, I had been teaching in a similar way, was it was based upon a definition of success that is different than most people's definition of success, because most people look at success in a comparative fashion. They're comparing themselves to somebody else. They're comparing themselves to some number. They're comparing themselves to, and John Wooden was a huge believer in comparison serves no purpose, unless the only comparison you're working towards is to improve yourself. And so the definition of success that he worked by, lived by, not just on the basketball court, but in every area of his life, said that success is peace of mind. And it comes from one thing. It comes from knowing that you've given the best of which you're capable. In other words, if you have to look at the scoreboard to determine whether you're successful or not, you don't really know, because you don't control the scoreboard. You don't control the other team. What you control is what you put in to move towards being the best that you can be, towards your own potential. And he lived that every single day. It wasn't just words, it was clarity. In 27 years at UCLA, the greatest coach of all time never once said the words winning or losing to his players. He never said the words. Wow. Now, did he want to win? Oh, yeah. But what he wanted more was for everyone that he associated with, his team, himself, his assistant coaches, everyone associated with the team, to focus on what they put in, their effort, their energy, their attitude. And he used to wink at you and say, you do that enough, you're going to be just fine. You're going to get closer to your potential. And so that was a huge part of it. And another part that's at the foundation of this was when I first met John Wooden in that very first interview live, I asked him a question that everyone listening to your show should be interested in. And it was a very basic, very foundational question. I said, Coach, what's the difference between a good team and a great team? What's the difference between a good team and a great team? And right away, he sort of shocked me, because as I said, I have a background in coaching too. And I thought he would say that it starts with recruiting and talent. You got to have the recruiting. You got to have the talent. And the first thing he said was, Brian, it doesn't have that much to do with recruiting and talent. I go, what? He said, and then he said these words that led to one of my more recent books title. He said, Brian, there are no overachievers. We are all underachievers. In other words, we have no idea how much is really inside of us. He said, there's always room for growth. We always can get better every single day. So he really caught my attention with that answer. The second thing he said definitely caught my attention, should capture everyone listening today. He said, Brian, the difference between a good team and a great team is exactly the same difference between a good leader and a great leader, between a good professional, a great professional, between a good parent, teacher, truck driver, business person, between a good anything and a great one. What makes the difference between good and great? So now he had my undivided attention. And he said, after a lifetime of working with people, which is what we all do, we all work with people. It's the relationships we build. It's how we build others and help and build ourselves. It'll determine how far we go. He said, after a lifetime of working with people, it became clear to him that the difference that ultimately makes the difference between good and great came down to the difference between two little words. He said, on good or average teams, good or average parents, good or average coaches, teachers, business people, professionals, he said, good or average people are willing to support each other and the greater good of the team. And the key word he used was willing. All right. Willing. He said, and I always thought willing was a really good word. It's way better than unwilling. All right. But then he described it in a way that I'll bet many people can relate to who are listening to. He said, willing is about the same spirit, effort, and energy with which a teenager cleans their room. He said, yeah, they'll do it because they're really hoping to eat this week. Okay. But they're not excited about it. He said, on a great team, a great teacher, a great podcaster, a great anything, those people are absolutely eager to do whatever it takes. No job is too big. No job is too small. No job starts too early or ends too late. He said, it's only when you move from being willing to being eager that you have a chance to really soar to your potential. Now, as soon as he said that, as you know, Dan, I'm sort of a visual guy. I got this picture in my mind, and I invented something to this day I still call the eager meter. All right. And the eager meter is, picture a speedometer. And on 0, that's willing. And on 200 miles an hour, that's eager. And so what really is the focus of my work, and I hope this book is part of that process for people, is to move at least one notch in the direction towards eager and away from merely being willing when it comes to standing tall and being the breakthrough leader that you're born to be. So that's simple. Part of the brilliance and genius of John Wooden was simplicity. I love the principle, the KISS principle, keep it simple, superstar. You may have heard a different version, but I like superstar. And simplicity gives us the strength to have something solid to hold on to. When I first started speaking, I would try to pour everything I knew out. And it was like, for people, it was like drinking from a fire hose. All you do is get thirsty. But when I started to bring it down to a few simple principles, which is how John Wooden lived, that's when people could grab a hold something, work on it in their life, instill it as a habit, and then move to the next one. So if you want to break through in your life, ask yourself, am I merely willing or am I absolutely eager? And that's when you're going to start to have breakthroughs.
So I wrote that down. Move from being willing to being eager. I love that. So Brian, you mentioned There Are No Overachievers, one of your other books. That's absolutely amazing. And then the last one that you just sent me, The ROI of Kindness. Both of them are amazing books. If y'all are looking for any books from Brian beyond success, and these three are absolutely remarkable. So Brian, big question, and one people might be asking themselves: how do we move from willing to eager?
That's great. First thing you need to know is it's a choice. There's several elements in that choice, because as soon as we recognize it's a choice, it's something we can start working on every single day. It's about controlling our control.
Oh, I think because he's on his phone, so he's probably just going to have to tap his phone to bring him back. So I think Brian was going into talking about controlling the controllables that you're able to control. And we had a brief discussion about this last time when Brian was on. But it was all about, like, what can you really control today? And how can you, Tony Robbins once said it like this. He said, why would you worry about something you can't control? And if you can control it, then you can direct the outcome. But if you can't direct the outcome, what have you ever worried yourself into a situation getting better or worse? Like, the situation's going to end up being what it is.
Yeah.
But we as humans, we worry. right? We worry about it. There's some things happening right now that if I were to sit back and worry, I would crumble, right? I would just simply be paralyzed in fear. So Brian, oh no, your audio now, but your last one here for some reason is still up there. Yeah. Well, hold on. What I'll do is this, Brian. I'll get rid of this one, and now you're back. Can you hear us now?
I think we lost him.
Yeah, I think he lost his audio again. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Yeah, I don't know.
Can we hear him now? No.
I feel like we do a lot of these Sprint commercials.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we need them as a sponsor next. Sprint, if you're watching. No,
yeah, Sprint, if you're watching.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah. So it's one of these things, right? When we control the controllables, we're in tune. We talked about it. I believe we talked about it last show where one of the big things that Ryan, who's on right now, taught me. And just so everyone understands the pyramid here, I became Ryan's sales coach, and he taught me probably more than I taught him, just from the one thing he said a million things that has taught me, but the one thing that he's really taught me is I was, for all of you that are in my network and that I speak to, I'm always asking you guys, like, what keeps you up at night? What can I do better? How can I do it? And when I asked Ryan, what keeps you up at night? He says, nothing. And at first I was like, come on. What? Like everybody goes, no, Dan. He goes, I do everything I can in my power to make sure that I do everything I can during the day. So he controls the controllables so he can put his head down at night and sleep peacefully. So for all of you,
I sleep peacefully too. I can sleep peacefully too, Dan, now that I can hear you again.
Hey.
Sorry, Brian. We were filling the air because we were talking about controlling the controllables, and
yes,
we went into, and I think we talked about it last time when I was on the phone with Ryan one day trying to figure out what keeps him up at night to better my marketing and sales and copy, and he said nothing. I do everything I can do during the day. I work my hardest. I believe in what I'm doing. And at nighttime, I could regardless of the results, I put my head down on the pillow at night, knowing I did my best.
Absolutely. And that comes from really controlling those few controllables that will move you from willing to eager. And a starting place is to focus first on what I call the foundational gift. It is, when I think of John Wooden and my interactions with the greatest coach of all time, this probably sticks out more than anything. And this is one that's really never been written about very much about John Wooden, unless it's in this book. John Wooden was the most fully present person I've ever met in my life. When you were with John Wooden, keep in mind, he was a legend. He was called the Wizard of Westwood. We lost him about 12 years ago at the age of 99 and a half, but he was revered. Even to this day, people forget he retired in 1975, and we're still talking about John Wooden in 2022.
Has it really been 12 years, Brian?
Yeah.
Wow.
And when you were with John Wooden, you felt like you were the most important person because he was 100% mind, body, and spirit with you. And so the starting place of really being a great teacher, coach, leader, parent is what he mastered, and that is to be fully present. When you're fully present with people, you say to them beyond words that they're important, that they matter, that they count. And when people feel important, they rise. They move towards their potential. When people feel taken for granted, when people feel that they're not important, they fall. It's as simple as that. And so one of the great gifts of John Wooden was he wasn't just present for the stars. I mean, he coached some incredible stars, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton, some of the greatest, probably the two greatest college basketball players of all time. But he was every bit as much present for a person who he coached for 4 years, who never made it into a game, who was only in practice. And everyone on that team, therefore, from the stars to the people who never played except in practice, they were important. And they felt it from him. And the same thing is true for every person on this call. When you're fully present, 100% of your mind, body, and spirit is with the person you're with, where they are now. And when you do that, way beyond words, you let them know that they matter, that they count, that they're important. It's more important in parenting than anything else you do. It's more important in sales, because when your potential customer, your prospect, your ongoing customer feels that you are fully present, they know that they matter. And that really builds that sense of loyalty and connection and a willingness to work through, in fact, an eagerness to work through challenges. So the starting place of really beginning to master this foundational definition of success and to move from willing to eager is to make the decision to be more fully present. How do you do it? Well, inch by inch, anything's a cinch. So I have a little assignment to everyone on this call today. You want to change your life at the foundation? Try this. Starting today, pick out 2 people in your life who for the next 30 days you commit to be more fully present with. It does not mean you have to spend more time with them. You may have less time. But when you're with them, shut off the telephone. When you're with them at home, turn off the television. Do this magical thing. Ask more than tell. And then genuinely listen when somebody's talking rather than thinking about what you're going to respond with. It'll come to you after you fully listen what to respond with, way more than if you are thinking about it while they're talking. And you watch. After a couple of days, they're going to look at you different. They're going to go, "You've been working out? You're losing weight? You're looking good." And as you become present with those 2 people, one at work, one at home, it'll start to become your habit until you start to move into that John Wooden realm.
I'm going to let everybody digest that for a moment while we switch to the DAT-powered lane of the day. Well, all right, here we go, my friends. For today, it's another flatbed move from Medford, Oregon to Los Angeles, California. So this is presently sitting at $2.64 a mile with fuel, $3.53 a mile. And the average overall is $3.71 a mile, but yet it's down 18 cents a mile year over year. And after dropping just over 70 cents a mile since the start of the year, spot rates are on the rise and increasing by it increased by 24 cents a mile just in the last week. That is crazy. That's insane numbers, my friends, but that's a killer lane of the day powered by DAT. So sorry, Brian, I just wanted to make sure that everybody kind of digested that for a moment, because, last time we were on, you shared the story about, or maybe it was the first time you were on, I think you shared a story about being fully present with finally the head of marketing when you were the head of sales, and how it totally transformed the business, the life. And that I know as soon as you said foundational gift, I knew it was going to be the gift of being present, because the past is history, the future is a mystery, the gift is now, it's the present. And a very great man taught me that line, and he's sitting right here in front of y'all. All right, so what's next after that then, Brian?
So we start with being fully present, and it's very important to understand. And I see one question from Jeff Dickinson. So Brian, besides a team setting, how does an individual who works alone feel important, or be able to take it up a level or 2 or 3? Being fully present for others is half the equation. You also must take time to be fully present with yourself. All right, that means, let me put it in a kind of a neat way. I was a swimming coach. In swimming, there are 2 parts to every arm stroke. Above water, when you're taking your hand from the back, when you push the water away until you catch it in front of you. And underwater, when you're pulling the water. The underbody part of the arm stroke is called the resistance. All right. And the resistance phase of swimming, all right, is where you're moving that water. The resistance phase of life is the doing, is the going, the moving. It's that to-do list. It's that agenda. It's getting things done. It's making things happen. But the above part of the water, do you guys know what that's called? DJ, you know what that's called? It's called the recovery. It's called the recovery. And the goal of the recovery is to let go and to have your arm move from where you push that resistant water behind you and bring your hand back out in front and catch the water again in front by completely letting go and relaxing. All right. And so a great vision of that is for those who, remember Michael Jordan playing basketball. You'd see this guy soaring for a one-hand dunk from the free throw line, and his tongue is hanging out like it's like a dog who's run a while. It's just limp. That means he has mastered the power of recovery. He's not wasting energy. The times in our lives where we take the recovery in life is the times where we're fully present with ourselves. Whether it be something that you spend time getting out in the woods, whether it spends time meditating, whether it spends time in prayer, whether it spends time listening to music. And that's the refurbishing, that's the regenerating time. So if you work alone, it's important to be present with yourself. But I always wonder, does anybody really work alone? I mean, doesn't what your work do affect other people in some way? All right. And so they may not be fully there in body, but always know that you never work alone. For number one thing, you're always teaching by the way that you work. So how do you make yourself feel important? Take some time each day to be fully present with yourself in a way that allows you to rejuvenate. 2, understand, when I hear people say they work alone, they may work in a private place. They may be working on coding a computer. They may be sitting in the bed of sitting in the cab of a truck and feel like they're alone, but they're not alone. There's people on the other end of that trip. There's people that are looking to you. There's people, whenever I go to an event, right before I speak, what I do is I bring with me this big photo of my family, because they are my life. They are my juice. They are my purpose. And the last thing I do before I speak is I go to that picture and I spend time with each and every one of them. Real time, present time. And immediately, as soon as I realize that they're with me, even though they're not there, something magical happens. It changes me. It changes me in an instant. No longer does it matter if my knees ache or my back is tired. All that matters when I get clear of my purpose, which is always related to something relating to other people. All I know is that if I don't give whoever I'm with that day the best I have to give, I'm not giving my family my best, and I won't do that. And so know that we're always affecting people, even just by being who we are. We're an example. We're a teacher. We're always teaching. We're teaching a way to deal with this thing called life. So that's my answer to Jeff's great question about, besides a team setting, we're always a part of a team.
Yeah.
I often call them legacy points. So many people think legacy is this, you got to open a wing of a hospital or you got to do this. But I believe legacy goes so much deeper. And even as simple as saying something to someone that changes their perspective and changes the outcome of the route they were going. Like when we think about this for a second, I've had customers where it's like, what is the goal? The mission is to get my bonus and get the bonus. And then I remember sitting at his house and he bought a pool with his bonus check. And his kids are playing and having a great time. And he looks at me and he goes, this is because of you. That's a legacy point, because there's a lesson somewhere when his kids are growing up or when there's other, he goes to another career or whatever. That's a legacy point. And I think we impact people more than we give ourselves credit for.
No question for that.
Yes.
That is a magnificent insight. And a great way to remember that is a simple, when you write, sometimes something comes to you and you go, oh my gosh, that's a good one. I'm glad I wrote that one down. And this one says, whenever we seek to enrich another's experience, we can't help but enrich our own. And the reason is, by enriching another person's experience, we put ourselves someplace we hadn't been before. And so it is so important to understand that one of the most powerful ways we can live that legacy, I love that, that's beautiful, is another key to moving from willing to eager. And that is to be what I call a world-class buddy thinker. A world-class buddy thinker. It's about the power of recognition, acknowledgement, appreciation, and kindness. And a great way to look at it is to ask yourself this question: who are the people in our lives who we tend to forget to thank the most? I've asked that 1,000 times in events, and almost always the major answer is it's the people we're closest to. It's our closest family members. It's our teammates we work with, we depend on. And so the question then is, why? What do we do? What happens? Well, we take them for granted. It's like, hey, I told you at 99 I love you. What do you want? Mush? All right. So let me ask everybody, does that work?
No.
And there's just a few guys out there going, man, I hope so. But I believe with
it doesn't work.
My heart and soul that does
No.
not work. In fact, the most important words I've ever written, so important to me that it not only does this sentence not only appear in Beyond Success, it appears in about 6 of my 15 books. It says, the love we fail to share is the only pain we live with. The love we fail to share is the only pain we live with. And if we don't seize this window of opportunity, which is right now, to let the people we know how important they are, to really, use that recognition, acknowledgement, appreciation, thanks, then the love you fail to share may become the only pain you leave with. And that's too late. Right. And so how do you become a world-class buddy thinker who really moves from willing to eager? Well, all the guys on this show, we all love sports. So I'm going to give you a metaphor. All right. And all you got to do from this point forward, whether you love sports or not, whether you're in Canada or the US, all right, you still probably know this one. Just remember ESPN. ESPN. All right. And it's not about the sports network now. The E says, thank, acknowledge, appreciate people with effort and energy. Have you ever noticed sometimes, guys, DJ, sometimes we thank people, we just do it out of rote memory. Hey, thanks a lot, appreciate it. It doesn't mean a thing. Yeah. But when you really stop to acknowledge somebody, you really shake their hand, you look them in the eye, you say, man, I am so grateful. It sticks. It stays with them. So the E says thank people with effort and energy. But even more important, it means thank people for their effort and energy and not just their results. We've been conditioned to only give thanks when the job's done, when the goal's been hit, when the number's been achieved. And keep doing that. You always want to acknowledge great performance. But if you're a world-class buddy thinker, then start to be more aware of the opportunities to thank people for their effort and energy before they get to the results. Why? How many people out here have ever gone for a goal? You worked harder than you ever worked, you did better than you ever done, and you didn't reach the goal. Yeah. Why? Because where do goals come from? I'll show you where goals come from. Choop, 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 choop. We invent them. Their vision, their imagination. Yeah. So if you only wait to acknowledge people for when they hit the goal, you're going to take them for granted. But when you start to acknowledge people, as John Wooden was the ultimate master of, for their effort, their energy, guess what? They'll produce more results. Because now they're focusing on what they do control, their effort and energy. So the E in ESPN to be a world-class buddy thinker, thank people with and for effort and energy. The S we could do a whole show on, and it's called surprise. Surprise is the super glue of impact because a surprise sticks with us. So next week, DJ comes into his office there, and there's a handwritten card from Dan. And the first thing the DJ goes is, it's handwritten. We get anything handwritten these days. What do we think? Wow, personal. They took some time, or I guess his computer's down. Exactly. All right, but basically they think, wow, cool. All right, so it's surprising to get a handwritten card these days. Second thing DJ goes in, it's not my birthday. It's not my anniversary. It's just Tuesday. So by doing something that's a little bit odd and timing, what's the result of that little bit of surprise for DJ? It's like he's like 1,000 times more interested in opening up this handwritten card than all those emails that have piled up. So opens the card and says, inside it says, DJ, I don't think I've told you enough. Smile, your energy, your positive spirit, how much you love people, how much you care about them, teaches me every day. And I just want you to know that you make a difference by who you are. Your pal, Dan. Nice job, Dan. Good note.
Yeah. And I started with smile too, because DJ smiles all the time. So start with smile. That's exactly where I would start if I wrote that note, for sure.
So DJ would keep that card more than any birthday card he ever got. Why? Because it had the power of surprise. It came unsolicited, unexpected. Do this with your kids, folks. I'll tell you, I did that all the years my children were growing up. I would write them letters. And I would write them letters. I would type them on my computer because that's how I write. I'd sign them. I'd put them in an envelope. I put a stamp on them and mail to them. Even if I knew I was going to be home when it would come. And the reason I did it was to walk the talk of being a world-class buddy thinker. But I really didn't think my kids gave a hoot. In fact, I think they thought I was kind of goofy because, my dad writes me these letters. He puts them in an envelope. He puts a stamp on them. He picks them up from the mailbox and then he gives them to me. I got a weird dad. All right. But then on the last
when you put
day,
it in that way, it does seem a little odd.
But on the last day that my daughter Jenna was home before she went away to college, we're cleaning up her room. It's mass hysteria. I open up her desk drawer. There's every one of my letters stacked up neatly. The only thing in my daughter's life that's organized were those letters. And I realized at that moment that the power of surprise meant my daughter couldn't look at her desk without refilling with that belief that I had inside of her. In my daughter's 20s, Jenna, she went through a horrible tragedy where somebody she loved dearly and was hoping to marry died from a drug overdose. Today, if my daughter was on this show with us, we'd have to adjust the lighting because she'd light it up. And I know that those small little surprises over time helped her through the toughest time in her life to know who she really is. So that's the power of surprise. The P we always talked about in ESPN, that's being fully present. And the N is to do it now. You know, I believe every day we're given this incredible gift that's called today. And the way today lines up, think of the metaphor of this is a great one for your show. Think of the road in front of you. And every day on that road, we get the same choice many times a day. It's a choice between two directions, a Y in the road. One side goes off this way and it says, as soon as. The other side goes the other way, it says now. To tell you the truth, as soon as looks easier. It's well lit, there's no ice, it's been repaved, piece of cake. Now curves and twists and it's kind of crazy sometimes. But if you choose the road called as soon as, it's a direct road to never. It only takes you to perpetual procrastination. Seize the now. So if there's people you haven't thanked, thank them now. If you haven't been fully present, change it now. If you've been living at level 4 on a 10-point energy scale, change it now. Because that's the only way we make progress is by jumping on those nows, learning from them, adjusting, and continuing our course.
Wow.
That is super
Wow.
powerful. Super.
Now,
I don't even know where to well,
now,
here,
Brian,
guess we'll
I will
start with-
I will have to touch on the selfish part of the surprising notes that you talked about, because something that I've done, and I never realized the power until really you talking about it right now. But sometimes in the morning, if I feel like I just haven't checked in enough with my kids or my wife, I will actually leave little notes from Post-it notes all over the place, hidden throughout, just staggered with little you are the best, I love you, this kind of stuff. And I selfishly wait for them to wake up excited, like, did they find it? How happy were they? Did it make their day? You never talked about that, but really, like, the joy that I get from that is probably just as much as I'm giving to them. And
that's it. Whenever you seek to enrich another's experience, you can't help but enrich your own. You feel the joy of
insane.
You see their smile. You see them kind of going, oh, my dad is so corny, but I love him. And I will tell you, having now children that are, fully grown, sometimes we think they don't even notice it. Sometimes we think they, maybe take that and throw it away. Sometimes we think it doesn't matter to them. Never doubt they got it. I did the same thing. My girls were growing up. I would write notes on their napkins in their lunches that I would make. And they're probably embarrassed at a certain point when my dad's, I'm not going to show them but they got it. And they knew they were loved. All right. And we knew we were doing our best to give it to them. So we can do that in such simple ways. When it comes to the professional world, you may think, oh, the love we feel here is the only pain we live with. Yeah, it is. Stop a meeting and just acknowledge someone who was just for their effort they're putting in. All right. Make that extra phone call and just say, hey, man, I was thinking about you. And, I don't think but you make a difference in everybody's life around you by just doing what you do. They may never comment on it. They may never say a single word that makes you think that meant anything to them, but they got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That is so powerful. So powerful. Joshua says, listen to understand, not respond. It's very important when someone is just listening to respond, because there's so many nuances that can be missed in dialogue if you aren't really listening. Yeah. And you know what? It's funny because when somebody is not listening, you can see it in their eyes.
Oh, yeah.
You can actually feel the vibration through the telephone too. right?
No question about it.
I
And
agree.
this is really important. There's a banner study. It's interesting. That's from UCLA, since we're on a little bit about John Wooden, that studied there are three elements in communication. All right. There is the words we say. There is tonality, which is not what we say, but how we say it. So it's our voice tone. And then there's body language. 55% of communication is not a word we say or how we say it. It's body language. That's the biggest factor. The second factor, 37%, all right, 38% is tonality. So only 7% of what's communicating is words. So when you are thinking in your own head and your eyes defocus, you're missing the body language. You're no longer listening to the tonality. You're not getting the communication. You might get some of the words, but what's really behind the words is what we communicate with. So it's a really, really neat thing to do, is to really start working on. Take a breath and just listen. And the power of just listening is unstoppable.
It is. It is.
Holy cow.
Based on the timing of Lisa's question, what is that one again? Lisa, I think you were looking
I think it was
at
what you said about
so
today.
the past is history, the future's a mystery. The gift is now. That's why they call it the present. And I learned that from the great Brian Biro. Yeah. I remember that when I first met you, Brian, when you came to the Bob Proctor Matrix event. And I remember there was about 35 or 40 of us in the room. And when you said that, when you were talking about ESPN right after the Allison story, because we were all just about to break our wood and break our boards and shatter our blocks and everything. And I remember how silent the room got, because it hit everybody like dead square right in the chest, just like almost like a percussion from an explosion. And it was like, oh boy. Very simple, but very powerful. Awesome. For those that work alone, great words from Brian to listen to and take to heart. Raquel says, Brian, you're a very wise man, and I hope we can connect. Dan, DJ, thanks for the amazing conversation. Well, thank you for showing up.
Thanks
Raquel.
for joining us.
And you know what? Thank you for finding us. That's super cool. It's your first time on the show. I hope you really enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you.
Lisa says, wise. Ryan says, great example is it's one of those reasons why I realize that date nights have been few since I got married, and now we go on dates 1 to 2 times a week.
Good for you, Ryan.
Yeah, very, very, very monthly guest. Yes, Brian's a monthly guest. Brian is gold. He sure is. I would actually go as far as platinum. Like, let's take it, step it up a notch.
My favorite one, though, Dan. My favorite one I'm seeing up here is from Raquel. It says, I think we were talking about, I don't know which saying it was, but that saying is also in Kung Fu Panda. I love that. There you go.
Oh, Kung Fu Panda is a great movie. Talk about an underdog story, eh? Gold. Thank people for their effort and energy, not just their results. Jeff says, that's what true leaders do. Never take the credit and bump people up, makes them feel more important and trusted. 100%. Do it
John
now.
Wooden used to say all the time, Dan, and this has been attributed to other people, but it was a very favorite saying of his. And he said it often. It was, it's amazing what's accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit. Amazing what's accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit. I add to that, credit is something you give, responsibility is something you take. Right. And what that does is that adjusts you to understand, I'm not sure if anybody on the show remembers, there was a great US runner by the name of Wilma Rudolph. Wilma Rudolph in 1960 won the 100-meter dash, the 200-meter dash, and anchored the 400-meter relay. So she won 3 gold medals at that time. She was the greatest American woman sprinter before FloJo, who was pretty awesome. Well, Wilma Rudolph, when she was a young girl, had polio. And she ran about 300 races just to learn to use her legs right again. And every one of her first 300 races she ran, she finished dead last. And then later on, through incredible story, she won 3 gold medals as the fastest woman on the planet. But here's what she said. She said, no matter what you accomplish in your life, no matter what you do, somebody always helps you. It'd be very easy for her to see, look what I did. For her life, it was always what we did. And that is a really powerful statement, because when you live with that definition that says it's amazing what accomplished when nobody cares who gets the credit, you move from ego to we go. And that's a wonderful place to go.
I love that, ego to we go.
Yes.
Lisa says daily deposits, DJ. Maggie says those are my favorite days. So that means that your little notes, your notes, DJ, your sticky notes. That's awesome. Carve your name on hearts, not tombstones. Legacy is etched into the minds of others and their stories they share about you. Beautiful quote. That is awesome. Yeah. That saying is also in Kung Fu Panda. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. Yeah. Okay. It was the Kung Fu. That was the Kung Fu Panda one.
I love it.
Jeff says, "Do you remember Dave Waddle, Brian? You remember that
story?
story?"
I do. Yeah, Dave Waddle won the 800 meters. I believe it was 1968. I'm not for sure. He wore the same hat that DJ is wearing right now. He always ran with a hat on like that. He won the race in, I think, right around 1:45 was the time. So it might have been 1:44.8. In the race at 1:34. So 10 seconds from when the race was finished, he was dead last. And in 10 seconds, he went from last to first. It was great. It was a great, one of the great. You watch that race and you just get the chills inside. I know we're getting towards the close here, but I wanted to bring one last thing out. Everything that's in the pyramid of success, everything that's in beyond success, really comes down to the core of what it's about and what it really means to move from willing to eager, what it really means to move closer to your potential. And that is to focus more on your character than your reputation. See, because your character is who you are. Your reputation only what others think you are. And if you stay focused on your character, that will become your reputation. I feel like in this world right now, if we could get back to focusing on character more than reputation, we could really make some real progress. We could learn to do some things like to disagree without being disagreeable. We could learn to respect and honor people for who they are. And I really believe that's a huge part of what made John Wooden so extraordinary, was he really was focused on character rather than reputation. And it really comes from focusing on controlling those controllables.
That's powerful, Brian. Very, very powerful.
Yes, I agree.
I hope everyone's got that. Raquel says, yes, living in the present and realizing others help you get where you're going and appreciating them all. Gratitude is key. It sure is.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a book that's called, a book called Power versus Force. And what the essence of the book is, it measures the frequency of emotions. We're all electric beings, and when we feel an emotion, we have a frequency. And the highest frequency, the highest vibration of any emotion is gratitude. So what that means is when you're in a state of gratitude, there's no room for being sad. There's no room for being angry, because the higher the frequency, the more power it has. And so start every day by asking, what am I truly grateful about today? And if you start with that, you start moving yourself in the direction of, what you focus on is what you create. You'll create more opportunities to be grateful and more opportunities to generate gratitude by doing things for others. So gratitude is a powerful, powerful emotion, the most powerful of them all.
Awesome. So, DJ, that's quite.
I think I have it nailed today, but I was.
Do you
ready
have it nailed? Because
that's
a big nail if you got it nailed, brother. That's like a 14-inch friggin' construction screw there. Never mind a nail. That's like one of those screws that you do foundations with on those big log homes. I forget the name of the show. I love it, and I forget the name. Go for it, DJ.
I love it. Well, hey, Brian, thank you so much. Through the technical difficulties and all, thank you for sticking with us and making this. This show was amazing. Thank you, Raquel, everybody who joined us. If you did not catch this, please don't miss it on the replay. We do replay this at 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock daily on our LinkedIn and YouTube channels. It is saved on our YouTube channel as well. Watching this, make sure and hit that little bell and all those fun things to make sure you get notified when we go live again. Again, Sales Chatter Live, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Start your day right with us. Start your day with gratitude, just like he's saying. You can't beat it. The vibrations you have going out, the negative won't destroy. So keep living with the gratitude, I promise. But Herman Cain is my quote to take us out. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you're doing, you will be successful. Love what you're doing, everybody.
Wrong one. Centurion Trucking. Our motto is people before profit. Today's market requires more transparency, consistency, and focus on what our clients need to win. Centurion Trucking and American Logistics are poised to help their clients achieve and surpass their targets. If you're looking for a team that honors your needs, dreams, and aspirations, then get a hold of Daman at American Logistics or Centurion Trucking and start designing